They were always there, not actively present, but sitting somewhere in the deepest back of my mind. The memories. Memories of long slides and big trampolines, as well as colorful tables where we had snacks and juice boxes. Memories of a climbing tower with leaves and tree branches where you could climb like a monkey. The monkey trees are the most vivid ones for some reason. The rest are mainly colors and a few noises. Noises of children's laughter and repetitive music, very faint somewhere in the background. As a child, you don't notice music as much. The colors I see when I try to think of the Funland are mostly green. Probably the monkey jungle I'm thinking about, but there are hints of bright pink and yellow too. Most distant memories of activities I did as a little kid are like that. I'm 23 now, pretty long ago, so I suppose it makes sense. It also makes sense that I remember blurps of color instead of real events and faces. I must have been 6 or 7 then. I can't say for sure because of the gaps in my head. Well, my mind. The children's Funland with the monkey climbing trees, music, and snacks. It would be one of those memories you simply have of your childhood. You don't remember it at all, but it is still a fine piece of nostalgia buried somewhere inside of you. I've done loads of stuff as a kid. Nobody actively thinks of it on a regular basis, and the only reason I'm starting this trip down memory lane now is because for some unspeakable reason, the Kicky-Kid's Funland suddenly became completely sharp and vivid, and that is not how brains are supposed to work. It sounds bonkers, I know. Odd because I know what the blurry memories look like, and so strange because now I can distinguish between those and the new ones I suddenly have. The vivid ones. Sounds strange. Yeah, it is, but that's not all. The memories didn't only come back to me, but also to Maxie Millers, my childhood best friend who I probably hadn't talked to in more than a decade. I woke up from a long sleep after a drunken night at the bar. I hadn't been drinking in forever and my tolerance was crazy low. After basically falling into a coma back at home, I had the most vivid dream. The following morning my eyes opened wide as the beams of light shining through the drapes kissed, or rather hit my face. First, there was pain. I'd forgotten how horrible hangovers can be, but then I repressed the pain to focus on the last dream I had that night. The dream that woke up all those memories of Kicky-Kid's land. Suddenly it felt as if all of it happened only yesterday, and I even wondered if I'd somehow gone there while completely being hammered. No, that couldn't be because in those memories I was a kid, and all the other ones there were too. You know how you always see yourself in a third-person perspective when you think of something that happened? Well, I saw child Jamie running around the plastic, or rather trampoline-like soft floor. It was all green. Forest green tiles mixed with poison green once. They bounced a little when you ran fast enough, and we always did. That's when I remembered Maxie. Well, I never forgot about his existence, of course. We simply weren't as close after going to different high schools. Tiny pink plastic tables with rainbow-colored chairs around them, which seemed much bigger then. The same irritating tune repeating over and over again, accompanied by children screaming, laughing, and crying. Our poor parents must have left with a migraine each time. I was surprised by how vivid those memories suddenly were, and for the first time in years, I kind of missed my old friend and wondered how he'd been doing. The headache was suddenly very much present again. I groaned and tried to suppress the pain just a little longer as I reached for my phone on the bedside table, and as if he somehow had read my mind, I saw a Facebook message from Maxie. "Hey man, how's it going?" Typical Max. We hadn't spoken in years and he texted as if we never stopped being friends. What the fuck? I mumbled to myself. This was too much of a coincidence. Had he somehow read my mind? Well, it turned out that I had no idea how much further this would go. After a little bit of chit-chat, I got to the point and told him about my dream, about my memories of Kicky-Kids and that I saw him in my dream. That last part sounded really weird and I almost regretted saying it until he texted back. "No fucking way, Jamie. That's exactly why I texted you. I had a dream like that." I broke a cold sweat, not knowing whether it was due to my hangover or the absurdity of the situation. It was all too crazy, but luckily my old friend agreed. I wasn't alone in losing my mind. "Do you remember where it was? Can't find it on Google." After jumping, or rather crawling out of bed, I chugged down some water with a few painkillers and called my mom. Her memories were even more blurry than mine. She said we went to a couple of different places for kids back then and she was right. Kicky-Kids didn't ring a bell, but then again she didn't remember any of the names. Finally, my friend Max did find something though. On some forum of our town, and after talking about it some more, we decided to meet again to catch up with some coffee and take a walk towards the industrial area where the Kicky building was supposed to be. What could be the harm in checking it out after all? I mean, they probably shut it down, right? We spent more than 2 hours at a cafe Max suggested, near the district he moved to. He only moved back recently after his dad broke his hips to help out and stuff. He had been in a relationship during most of college, but they broke up more than 6 months ago. However, that was most of the catching up we did. For the rest of the 2 hours we sat there talking about our childhood, the only common topic we had. Finally, we addressed the elephant in the room. How the actual fuck did we have the same dream last night? I stayed silent for a second. I'd been thinking about it all day. I'm not exactly a superstitious person. I studied psychology. I'm aware of the ability of our minds. Maybe we saw some commercial? Subconsciously woke up that memory? Maybe. Still weird though. I swear I remember every second. Even how you fell on the floor and messed up your knee. I swallowed. That is exactly what I had seen in my dream before I woke up this morning. For some reason, that particular moment didn't feel cheerful. Or maybe I'm thinking that because I woke up with a racing heartbeat. Now Max was grinning. "Want to go check it out?" I nodded. That was the main reason we met up after all. Neither of us expected it to still be around. Many old places were shut down, especially in the industrial area, and if it was still there we would have found it more easily online. That's why we stood with our mouths wide open as we looked up the enormous green neon sign that read, "Kicky-Kids Land, fun for young and old." I gulped. "Looks exactly the same," Max said as if reading my mind. I expected the building to appear old or run down, but it was clean and the sign is lit up, which means there is electricity. "They're still open," I said. "Should we go in?" "Hell yeah. It says young and old, right?" I grinned. And I swore at that moment it didn't matter that we had lost touch for years. It felt as if I was back with my best friend, and we were up for a crazy adventure. The door was open, and as we entered the entry hall, I could already hear the familiar music in the distance. There was a big desk in front of us where you would pay, but there were no other people. "What now?" I asked. Max shrugged and then pointed towards the big door which formed a half circle with a thin curtain hanging down from it. That's how you got to the main hall of the Funland. We could hear laughter and music coming from behind it. That was the first moment in which I got a little nervous. We had been acting pretty impulsively. "Should we go?" I asked. "Inside?" Max misinterpreted. I meant to leave, but now I was really curious. We could take one tiny peek and leave afterward. Max led the way and I followed. Before we knew it, we stood in the fun hall of Kicky-Kids Land. It looked exactly the way I remembered it. The plastic tables, the gummy floor, and rainbow chairs. There were colorful slides and even indoor swing sets, The walls were painted with teddy bears and lollipops and fire trucks. Everything looked exactly the way it did back then, but it was incredibly eerie. "There's no one here," Max whispered. I swallowed. I could have sworn that I heard children laughing and screaming even. Now, all we heard was the music. Max and I looked at each other. "Maybe they're getting ready to close down? It's pretty late." He nodded. A knot was tightening in my stomach. "We should get going," I said as I took one more look around the big hall, but then I noticed something. "Wait, where's the jungle, where you could climb?" Max took another step inside and I reluctantly followed. He'd always been a little braver, or dumber. "That wasn't here," he answered after a bit. "That was a different fun land or whatever." "Are you sure? How many of these are there?" Max didn't answer. He was now confidently walking towards the other side of the hall. "There's someone there," he exclaimed. "Hello?" he shouted. "What the fuck, man?" I hissed. "We're not even supposed to be here." As I caught up to him, I saw the person he was talking about, but they didn't look quite regular. "Is that a clown?" I asked, but didn't expect an answer. The tall man had white makeup on his face, was wearing a red wig and a big red nose, as well as a black and white clown costume. He started moving towards us, but not in a regular manner. He was somehow jumping while walking extremely slowly. I grabbed Max's arm and got ready to get the hell out of there, but then the man smiled and waved. "I fucking hate clowns," Max whispered. Only then I noticed how tense he was. I suppose his confidence was slowly fading. "Hello," the clown called back in the same tone as Max. I'm not sure if my friend noticed as well, but somehow his voice even sounded like his. "Hey, sorry, we just came in here. We wanted to see if this place still looked the same as it did when we were kids." I nervously laughed. The man came closer and I noticed that it wasn't makeup on his face, but a mask. "Hey, this place is sorry. I hate kids," the man said. Now his voice was even stranger. It partly sounded like Max, but also somehow like me. "Is he screwing with us?" Max tried to joke, but I clearly heard the nervous undertone in his voice. "Let's get the hell out of here." But as I turned around to where the exit should be, I realized that it wasn't there. The door wasn't where we had come from. All I saw in front of me were colorful toys in giant sizes and climbing racks or slides. Something had changed while we were inside, and I cursed myself for not listening to my gut and following a guy I hadn't talked to in years. Suddenly I even wondered if I really ever came to Kicky's before. Suddenly everything seemed utterly and awfully wrong. I felt as if I was waking up from a trance. Why was I here? Why was there music and light but no people except for one clown? And why was there no proof of this place even existing? I hadn't thought about it until this day, apparently. It had melted with other memories of mine. Had it been planted inside my mind? I looked at my old friend who suddenly didn't seem that familiar anymore. I blacked out pretty badly last night. Had he done something to me? Was this even the Maxie Millers I remembered? I looked back, but the clown was gone. The clown was gone, but the sound of children playing and laughing was back. Except now the two of us seemed to be alone in this massive hall. I didn't even look at Max again. I simply started running. If I couldn't find the door, at least I needed to get away from him. I ran towards something that seemed to be a ball pit. The music and laughter got louder and my mind was too overwhelmed to even think clearly. This couldn't be a prank. The door disappeared. It was there a few minutes ago. I kept running without a safe goal, and as I tried to quickly turn around to see if he was following me, I tripped. I fucking tripped and fell to the ground, with my knee hitting the ground so hard that my arms followed quickly. As I tried to get up, I saw him, The clown standing right in front of me. "Not supposed to be here. Hell is fun," he said in that voice that was both mine and the one of Max. I wanted to get up, but my body was frozen. I could hardly even breathe. Only when I thought it couldn't get worse, he proceeded to take off his mask, and underneath revealed something so utterly wrong and uncanny that I will never be able to wipe it off my mind. His face had been sewed out of different parts of human faces. I was sure this moment would be my last until someone grabbed my arm and started pulling. "Move!" Max shouted, and as I didn't know what else to do, I followed. We ran to the other side of the hall, where the door had suddenly appeared back out of nowhere. I was certain it had been in a whole different corner when we came in, but it didn't matter. We ran and ran until we pushed open the glass door and were back out on the street. I fell again and so did Max, but we were outside. Completely out of breath, I turned my head around just a bit to see if we were being followed. The clown wasn't behind us. No, not only was he gone, Kicky-Kid's land wasn't behind us. All we saw was an old gray brick building. No sign and no music. It was the middle of the day, and while there weren't that many people out on the street, it seemed completely normal, as if we hadn't just jumped out of a nightmare. I looked at Max, who was just as out of breath as me, and who appeared just as shocked, and I felt guilty for believing that he tried to lure me in there, for believing that he wasn't himself. He was the one who saved me. "How did you find the exit?" I finally muttered as we were getting away from that street as fast as we possibly could. I was leaning on Max because I could hardly walk. He grabbed for his phone with sweaty hands to call for help, though I had no idea what we would even say. "The walls move," he finally said after taking a deep breath. I remembered from my dream. I remembered the fun land vaguely. The one with the monkey climbing park. That one was real. Max and I really did go there as kids. Maybe it shut down or became a different place. The place we visited that day was not. Kicky-Kid's land did not exist, and neither do the memories we had of it. Of course, it couldn't have. The memories were far too sharp to be real. I have no idea who or what planted them in our heads to lure us to that place, but we were lucky we got out alive.